Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I am your host, Armando Venditti. It is quite late here in Edmonton, Alberta. It's after 11, and I've decided to try and do this episode for you. In this episode, I'm going to be doing a ranking of the albums of the band Tears for Fears. Now, Tears for Fears are a new wave pop band from Bath, England. The two primary members of the band are Roland Orzabal on guitars, keyboards, drum programming, what have you. Kurt Smith on bass, keyboards, programming, etc. In the early days, on the first two albums, they were supported by members Ian Stanley on various keyboards and Manny Elias on drums, etc. They started out, let me backtrack. Roland Orzabal and Kurt Smith knew each other as kids in grade school. They were in two bands. One was called Graduate, and another one was called Neon. They quickly got tired of being in these bands because apparently they were touring up and down, England and really not getting anywhere. And they wanted to break away and do their own group. So they decided to leave Graduate and start their own band. Now, Tears for Fears were always a band that, in the very beginning, that really stood out from their musical peers of the time. The Duran Durans, the Haircut 100s, the Depeche Modes, of the era. I call them thinking man's pop. They signed a deal with Polygram, Phonogram, Mercury, or Vertigo, depending on what market you were in. They released their debut album, The Hurting, in 1982, and 3 years later released Songs from the Big Chair in 85, and then 4 years later released Seeds of Love. At that point, after the tour, they parted ways. They had a major argument between Roland Orzabal and Kurt Smith, and they just decided to go their separate ways. Roland Orzabal keeping the name Tears for Fears and continuing. He had released albums under the moniker of Tears for Fears, Elemento, Raul and the Kings of Spain, to name but two. They reunited in early 2000s and decided to release an album together. Everybody loves a happy ending. And it was 17 years until they released their latest album in 2022 called The Tipping Point. Now, what I'm going to attempt to do is it's going to be difficult, but I'm going to attempt to rank the 7 albums least to best, in my very, very humble opinion. So here we go. Number 7 is, for me, Raul and the Kings of Spain. Released in 1995 by Roland Orzabal under the moniker of Tears for Fears. Released through Epic Sony Music. This album, when it first came out, I listened to it almost ad nauseum. It is a very good album. It is a very rocking album in some spots, very reflective, introspective in other spots. The lead-off single for the album was God's Mistake, which I do believe was a mistake, because there are other songs that, forgive me, that better represent the album than God's Mistake. It's very nondescript for a lead-off single. The other songs of note, sorry, on the album are the title track, Falling Down, Sketches of Pain, which is more basically an acoustic piece of music, and it goes into different sections, and then I dare say it has a bit more of a flamenco feel to it. Roland Orzabal is exploring his Spanish roots on this. Other tracks are Los Reyes Catolicos. Other songs. Sorry is another one. Humdrum and Humble is another good track. Sorry, to backtrack for a sec, is a really rocking track, like just unbelievable. Other songs of note are Don't Drink the Water. The one song that I feel is amazing that should have been released on this album is a duet that Roland Orzabal does with Oleta Adams called Me and My Big Ideas. It's basically a ballad. It is a ballad, and it's a very emotional track. The strings that they use on this track are amazing. It's a very lush production, and he's basically telling his girlfriend or his partner, I am not who you think I am. I am not the best person for you. You need to find your own path in life without me. There's a line on the track that goes, so many strings to your bow, why not let one go? Meaning you have all these options in front of you. You have all this life ahead of you. Why are you with me? You need to go on your own. And it is gut-wrenching and it is emotional. This is the track that should have been released as a single. I don't know why Epic or Sony did not do this, but they didn't. That's number 7. Number 6 is The Hurting. Now, The Hurting was released in 1982. It was a massive hit with singles that were released from the album were Change, Pale Shelter, Mad World, Suffer the Children. Pale Shelter got 2 releases. There were 2 versions of it. I don't know why. Other tracks of note are, one in particular is Ideas as Opiates. The main inspiration for this album was Screen Therapy. So you can imagine it's a very dark album subject-wise. It's a very dense, layered album, very keyboard, drum machine oriented album. There is an anniversary edition of this album with multiple discs, and one of the discs has John Peel sessions on there, BBC sessions. So if you can get your hands on this hot little item, it goes for about $300. So that's a lesson to when these box sets come out, get them whenever you can, as quickly as you can, because once they run out, people can charge you whatever they want for them and get away with it. So please do so. That is number 6. Number 5 is Elemental. Released in 1993 by Roland Orzabal. It is a very, again, guitar-driven album. Very melodic, but very guitar-driven. The lead-off single from the album is Break It Down Again, which is my favorite track from the album. I've always loved that track. Other songs of note are the title track, Elemental, Cold, Good Night Song, Gas, I believe is another track on the album. Elemental, the subject matter is basically saying when life gets too difficult or too involved or too complex or too confusing, break everything away, break everything down to the common denominator, to the basics, and then start, if you can, again and go from there. Because you owe it to yourself, first and foremost, to have a happy life. That's what it means. That's what I'm taking from it. That's number 5. Number 4 is The Tipping Point. Now, came out in February of 2022. The lead-off single was The Tipping Point, the title track. Other tracks of note are My Demons, No Small Thing, which is another single. The first album that they've done in, I believe, 17 years, if I'm doing the math right. Last album previous to this was Everybody Loves a Happy Ending. This album has a long history. They started to record this album and they wanted, the record company and management wanted them to work with outside writers. They had originally, first of all, signed a deal with Warner Brothers Records to release this album. This is as far back as 2017. Universal Music, who is a distributor of Polygram, Mercury, Vertigo, approached Warner Brothers and offered to buy the contract back because they wanted to be the ones to release this album. They subsequently signed a deal with Concord Records and did this album. Now, it is a very good album. No Small Thing, sorry, starts off the album, and it's very acoustic based in the beginning. And it is very beautiful. It's almost like a folk type of a song. The Tipping Point is very moody, very textured, almost ambient effects and textures. Fantastic. It is a good album. Do I go back to it? Fortunately not. It's not that it's not a good album. Maybe I do need to listen to it more. It is what it is. That's number 4. Number 3 is Seeds of Love. Now, this album released in 1989, 8 tracks. This album, there was a 4-year gap between this one and Songs from the Big Chair. It half comes off in that the first half of the album, you have Woman in Chains, Bad Man Song, Sowing the Seeds of Love, Advice for the Young at Heart. That side 1, is a fantastic first side. The other side, Standing at the Corner of the World, Year of the Knife, Famous Last Words. It's very, it is very difficult to get into the album. The album, when it was recorded, they apparently had recorded an album, spent $1 million recording this, and just threw everything away and started over again. Which begs the question, how how good were those other songs that they recorded and threw away? I don't know. It is half of a good album. I'm sorry, but it is what it is. It ranks at number 3 for me because side 1 is very strong. Woman in Chains with Phil Collins on drums at the end is a fantastic, moody, almost painful look at men and saying to men or to women, look at how, I mean, regardless of the name of the subject, the title of the track, regardless of that, it's saying, look at how you're treating your other half, your better half. Bad Man Song is a fantastic gospel R&B blues track. Clocks in at 8 minutes plus, and it goes into different sections. Features, I keep saying Oleta Adams on co-lead vocals, and she does some fantastic piano work on this. It is amazing. By the end of the track, you feel like you've been to church and been baptized. Okay. Sowing the Seeds of Love is, I call it a 60s pastiche. Very Beatles influenced with the horns, etc. It's a great track. And Roland Orzabal does a fantastic vocal on it, and so does Kurt Smith, but Roland Orzabal really shines on this. Advice for the Young at Heart closes off side 1 with Kurt Smith on lead vocals. It is a fantastic pop song. Just, there's no way around it. It's a pop song. I don't mean it to degrade it by calling it that, but it's a very beautiful melodic piece of work. So that's why it's number 3. Number 2 is Everybody Loves a Happy Ending. This album came out in 2004. It is beautiful. It is lush. It is symphonic in spots. It is textured, dense, layered, whatever word you want to use to describe it. It is great. It was released again in 2004, and it was much touted as, a long anticipated release from Tears for Fears because they had gone back together. They had signed a deal with Arista in the States. L.A. Reid wanted to have them on the label. He was the head of Arista. There was a shakeup of management. L.A. Reid was ousted. So then Tears for Fears were knocked off the roster, although there are some Arista releases of this album. Songs of note on this album are the title track, which it's very Beatles-esque, very much so. Different sections, different key changes. Closer to Heaven, which was the lead-off single. Who Killed Tangerine? Great song. Call Me Mellow. Beautiful song. Beautiful song. The Devil is another one. The standout track for me is Secret World. It is a symphonic masterpiece. They really went to town on the lush arrangements on this album, the beautiful harmony vocals, the just craftsmanship of these songs. Secret World talks about the person taking whoever's in their life who is of significance to them and just concentrating on the two of them and not worrying about the outside forces, not worrying about what could possibly ruin their version of utopia, and just enjoying each other. And never mind what else is going on outside. Forget the drama of what is going on outside. Concentrate on yourselves and love one another, relish one another, enjoy one another. That is what that one track is. And it is all wrapped up in a beautiful symphonic web, I call it. It is a masterpiece, that one track. I cannot say enough about that. That's number 2. And number 1 for me is Songs from the Big Chair. Released on February 25th, 1985 through Vertigo, Mercury, depending on the region. Their second album, they were under pressure from Polygram and management to release another album quickly. They took their time. There are 8 tracks on the album, and I'm going to try and name them off for you. Shout, The Working Hour, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Mother's Talk. Side 1. Side 2, I Believe, Broken, Head Over Heels, which segues into Broken, live section of Broken, and Listen. This album for me, I have called a mid-80s masterpiece, and it is. People have said in other videos, what is Shout about? They have no idea. Well, Shout was a lead-off single, and you can say what you want about it. That song for me is about questioning what you don't understand or what you think is wrong. If something in your life is not to your liking or to your satisfaction, or you feel that you can change it and ask what is going on, do it. Okay? That's why I said these songs are not your typical pop fare. They are thinking man's songs or thinking man's pop. You have that track. You have The Working Hour, where the in the chorus it says, "This is the working hour. We are paid by those who learn by our mistakes," meaning that the record company was after them to release a new album, if not at least a single, to tide people over. So they released a single called The Way You Are. The record company loved it. They didn't like it. The band didn't like it. They released it. It didn't go anywhere. The record company basically wanted, excuse me, wanted some product to release to the public. They wanted to strike where the iron was hot, and the band wasn't ready. So basically, they're saying, you're making money off of us, even from songs that we don't think are great. So, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Welcome to your life. There's no turning back. You know, for a pop song to have that kind of an opening, there you go. I'm sorry. Mother's Talk ends up side 1. Now, this version of it was like the third version that they recorded for this song. They didn't like the first version. They didn't like the second version. This song, this version of it is for me, the definitive version. Okay, I have heard people say that it suffers from production techniques that are reminiscent of Art of Noise. Who cares? Who cares? It's a good song. It is. It's a really good song. Side 2, I Believe. just a beautiful acoustic track on grand piano and drums. Very minimal drums, a very minimalist recording. It segues into Broken, which, I mean, it's a fantastic track. Drum machine or not, the drums are pounding. They're rhythmic. The bass that comes in is bloody brilliant. The guitars that come in that accompany it, almost like a counterpoint to the bass, just great. Even the lyric between the searching and the need to work it out. I've stopped believing that everything will be all that. It's like, guys, between the searching and the need to work it out, I've stopped believing that everything will be all right. Broken, we are broken. That is the chorus. That is the song. And then it leads into Head Over Heels, which the video for was recorded in Toronto. And it starts out on the grand piano with the chords, and then the guitar comes in and copies the chords on the piano. It's just a great song. And then it leads into a live section of Broken that I believe that was recorded at Massey Hall. And it's just instrumental. And it's just great. That segues into Listen, a 6-minute plus track of very atmospheric keyboard textures and chord sequences. And it's very minimal vocals. It's a fantastic way to end the album. This album, I have gone on record as saying, again, that it is a mid-80s masterpiece, sorry, and I will stand by that until the day I leave this earth. I swear to God, there's no other way to put it. So that is my list. Hopefully you like it. If you don't, please let me know your comments down below, down there, and let me know what you think. Do you like Tears for Fears? Do you think they're overrated? Do you think they should be doing more recording? Do you think they should just stop? Do you think that they're a thinking man's pop? Let me know what you think. And again, please hit like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content that I've got coming up. And once again, this is Armando Venditti signing off. Please look after yourselves and one another, and I will be talking to you very soon. Okay? Bye for now.